as live as they can see.
We-
We're alive.
We're
Is
alive.
that right?
We're live, yeah.
Those guys look like they're all dead.
Usually my watch tells me when it kicks in. Good evening. Welcome to the Town of Cicero Planning Board meeting. Would you please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Mr. Abbey, would you lead us off, please?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which is one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yep.
First item is the approval of the minutes from the January 18th planning board meeting. Are there any questions or comments? Do we have a motion for approval?
Motion for approval as printed.
Second,
Mr. Duval,
Yes.
Mr. Abbey,
Yes.
Mr. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Bloss,
yes.
and I vote yes. Minutes have been approved. Now we'll open the meeting to public comment. If there's anybody here that would like to speak to the planning board on any active application other than the public hearing that is coming up, you can save it for the public hearing if that's the case. Please come up now.
So, hi,
Hello.
Mike DeVero, 6032 Stellar Road. Just want to address the agenda item for the solar farm proposal. Just want to bring up that the town adopted specific regulations in chapter 208 for solar energy systems. The zoning regulations contain specific requirements that are intended to protect against a negative visual and a negative environmental impact to the community and nearby property owners. Chapter 208 requires that solar projects are integrated in such a way as to minimize the visual impact on the community. The regulations require that a landscape plan show all existing natural land, trees, and forest cover. The regulations requires a berm, landscape screen, or combination to screen the site. The regulations require simulations showing the elevation views. The regulation include requirements for a visual assessment of the visual impacts. And lastly, the regulations contain detailed requirements for a screening and landscape plan so that views of solar panels and equipment shall be minimized from public roadways and adjacent properties. The submission attached to the agenda does not meet the requirements or any of these requirements in the regulations. Most importantly, chapter 208-8 requires the town board to permit tier 3 systems in such a manner so that no one area or neighborhood in the town is overburdened by the placement of tier 3 solar systems. As we know, there's a large solar farm on McKinley Road. This planning board has considered and sent another large solar farm project on Mudmill Road to the town board that is currently up for public hearing on February 8th. By my estimation, this proposed project tonight is less than 1,000 yards away from the Mudmill Road solar farm. And it's about a mile away from McKinley Road solar farm. This is an obvious overburden to this area, my neighborhood. Based on this requirement alone, this project will not be approved by the town board, and this planning board should make that recommendation immediately so that no further time or money is wasted. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to address the board?
Jamie Party. I live at 5980 Sneller Road, Virgin, New York. Currently, right now, I have a solar farm to the south of me. Now you want to put one to the north of me. Now you want to put one to the west of me. Are you going to put one to the east of me too? To me, we're getting into that overburden of a neighborhood. Also, with the landscape for blocking it from public view, it's always been talked about just at the roadway. We're all here for a reason. You guys sit up there for a reason, for development of town. So if someone's got a parcel next door to it and they want to develop it, you've got to protect that as well for their future development of their land. So it's not a visual to that to me as well. So, but I really think you're starting to overburden the neighborhood.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to address the board? Given nobody else is approaching, we will close the public input and move on to agenda item number 1. This is for continuation of a public hearing for a subdivision of the property at 7381 Route 31. For that subdivision, Mr. McDermott is representing the applicant.
Michael McDermott, attorney for petitioner Edward Champagne and also Melissa Daniels and Albert Daniels, who have joined into this petition. We've made the changes to the subdivision plan that were recommended by the town engineer, and I believe you've received those revised maps now. Yes. So other than that, it's the same project. We're taking one lot that's 28.39 acres and dividing it into 5 lots. One lot will be transferred to Melissa and Albert Daniels and added to their existing house and lot. It's located and depicted just to the left. If you're looking from the roadway to the entire project. The lot that's numbered number 1, my client will retain, Mr. Champagne will retain. He's got a pole barn there now. And then the remaining 3 lots will be marketed and sold at some point in the future for residential use.
I think we'll open up the public input, public comment at this point, and then we'll continue.
Thank you.
Thank you. And is there anybody here that would like to address the board on this particular subject? I will read a letter that was received by Mr. Procopio by a resident in the neighborhood there. It says, Mr. Procopio, as a homeowner with the property that borders the said subdivision, I must voice my concern with the development of this property. Route 31 is a 55-mile-an-hour road through this area, and I have seen multiple accidents with fatalities over the 33 years that I have lived there. A bend in the road with 2 other roads intersecting Route 31 in this stretch make it dangerous traffic area as it stands now. Adding another driveway road to the stretch of Route 31 is hazardous at best. Therefore, I must voice my opposition to the subdivision. I am in South Carolina, blah, blah, blah. So, and this person's name is Dennis Wisniewski. I'll give you the letter. Wisniewski. And with that, we will close the. Sure.
My name is Michael Dickinson. I'm also an adjoining property at to these parcels. I am in favor of it. I didn't think there'd be a necessary to speak, but with the letter directly to the east, and I have no issue with it at all. So I would speak for the project.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? We'll close the public input portion of the application and open it up to questions from the board.
I'm
Jim?
good at this time.
Mr. Abbey.
I'm also good, but I just recommend checking with Mark, just to be sure his comments have been responded to satisfactory.
Yes, we don't have any additional comments beyond what's provided in our letter, and don't have any issues with the plan as
Thank you.
presented.
Mr. Snyder.
I'm good.
Mr. Bloss.
I'm all set.
Mark, with the county's comments, they were recommending driveway permits prior to subdivision? I'm gonna read it to you.
Sure.
All future driveways on Route 31 for the proposed lot must meet New York State Department of Transportation requirements, including the availability of site distance. The applicant must verify access plans meet department standards meet department standards prior to municipal approval of the subdivision. Any work within the state right of way requires highway work permit.
Yeah, I guess it would be up to the board if they want to comply with that request. Ultimately, they will have to go to the state DOT to get a driveway permit for access. I guess the only thing I could offer is if the lot is created, the DOT does have to provide access. And so I guess if there was something that would be substandard with the site distance, they would have to probably minimize that to the extent that they could, but they would still have to give the access.
So if we subdivide, they have to give driveway cuts to each one of those lots.
Yes, they can't deny access to a parcel.
Mr. McDermott, can you approach?
Yes.
Did you have a chance to review the county comments?
Yeah, I saw those comments, and I saw Mark's, recent letter too, which, talked about the need not to have to do that at this point, or at least that was his recommendation in his letter.
I'm not sure if that really says that.
It
It
doesn't,
just says
yeah.
that the driveways need to be approved by the DOT.
Right, right. And of course, any driveway cut would have to be approved by the DOT, but to have the requirement that the driveways be identified prior to the approval, each of the lots has sufficient road frontage. They're quite wide lots. And any homeowner who wanted to put a house on any of those three remaining lots should have the option to put their driveway where they would want it to be, and where it would be approved by the DOT.
I agree with that. The concern is the curve in sight distance. We have no idea whether or not it would meet. I mean, if they applied right now, would it meet the state requirements? I don't know.
I don't know for certain either. I mean, there is a bit of a curve there. I don't think there's much in the way of a
It's not, you're
great
right.
change.
Yeah,
It's
it's
not
not
like
huge.
it's super hilly or anything like that. But without someone going out and actually doing some investigation, I can't tell you for certain with absolute certainty that these would meet the
Yeah.
requirements.
I drove there and I didn't have overly concern with the curve, but I know.
Yeah.
Of course.
So
Can you come up to the mic and give your name, please?
Edward Champagne, I'm the owner. So about 3 years ago, I went to the state for a permit on that same parcel. And they proved it without any problem. They came out and looked at it, said the site distance was fine. And you can see that in the survey map, the little driveway that I had put in. You want to go the other direction? The other direction?
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm just looking at, so this would be Lake Shore here.
And there's driveways practically right across from it, right there.
Yeah, so
Right.
if, yeah, so Lake Shore's way back here. Okay, there's Eastwood.
So where I used to live is that brown house. There's a driveway right there.
Yeah,
So I'm
here-
talking
here-
right across the road.
Yeah, so
from that.
here's Eastwood right here, right? Which would be this. So you're really looking at this stretch of road in through here, so just to the east of Eastwood. So I mean, it seems pretty. Yeah, a bit of curve there. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I wasn't overly concerned when I drove through it, but like I said, I'm not. I didn't-
And when I had approached the state for more permits, they said that I had to have it approved by the town first.
Chicken or egg, not eggs these days.
So that's all I have to say.
Any questions or comments on that? On that part? Thank you. Neil, do we need a seeker?
Yes.
I'll move for the standard seeker. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Duval,
Yes.
Mr. Abbey,
Yes.
Mr. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Bloss.
Yes.
I vote yes. Neil, would you propose a motion for approval, please?
Yes, you're going to move for the adoption of a resolution approving the application known as minor subdivision preliminary and final plan, Edward Chapine, 7381 Route 31, 4 lots. This approval is strictly conditioned on the following: one, the applicant is hereby advised that pursuant to section 185(6) subsection F of the code, the applicant has 90 days from the approval to file the map. If the applicant misses the 90-day filing deadline, this approval will have expired. Two, the statutorily required park fees total $2,000 based on the 4-lot subdivision. Three, the applicant is further notified that the chairman of the planning board may delay signing of the final plan until the chairman verifies that the applicant has executed any and all necessary agreements with the town and that any security or undertakings are in place.
Would somebody like to make that a motion?
That's in the form of a motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Duval,
Yes.
Mr. Abbey,
Yes.
Mr. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Bloss.
Yes.
And I vote yes. You're all set. Thank you. We'll move on to the second agenda item. This is CVE North America. This is a sketch plan review for a proposed tier 3 solar energy facility at 9155 Brewerton Road.
The convenience stores next.
I'm sorry, I skipped one. You're not up yet. The real number 2 is for a site plan. This is a proposed convenient shop at 5917 Route 31.
We were patient back there.
Thank you.
Christian Freeman, Keplinger Freeman Associates, and I'll let you guys introduce
Marla
yourselves.
Cohen.
Brian Cohen.
So where we left last, we received a comment letter from Mark, which we addressed, we submitted. We updated our plans. We revised and submitted photometrics, elevations. We also included data on some other drive-throughs that have a similar use, and we provided images of a drive-through in Syracuse that's also a convenience mart, which would be similar. Ours, I would argue, was laid out a little better, but it does exist. And Mark issued comments January 26th that I'm looking at here. I'm not sure if the board had reviewed those in detail. I'll go over those at your discretion.
Your comments to his letter, is that what you want to review?
We submitted our comment letter, to which he responded with a January 26, 2023 letter. Most of the items were completely buttoned up. I could let Mark speak to that himself, but at this point,
Yeah, you don't have to review his letter.
yeah, okay.
We'll open up to questions from the board. Mr. Duval?
There was some talk about marking as far as the crosswalk and all that.
Correct. We added that in our plan.
Okay. I'm good.
Mr. Abbey?
As we all know that it's a tough spot to try and put a business with some traffic around there, but in reference to another story, I saw that said they were averaging 3 to 5 cars an hour, which isn't gonna be really an issue. There was a mention on the standing sign down in the point there, at the intersection of taking it off your plan.
Chuck, can you talk into the mic, please?
About the freestanding sign.
Those are separate issues, but I'll talk through them for you, Mr. Abbey. So the first was there's I believe it's like a frame on the building, and Ryan could speak to this better than I. It exists on the building. It's an eyesore, and they're going to take it down and repair the building as needed so that it looks nice and buttoned up and put together.
Thank you.
Separately, there exists a signpost at the acute angle on the corner of Lakeshore Road and Route 31, the bottom left of the plan. That post has an empty frame and rectangle above it, to which we were hoping to get signage in. At this point, we've been to the board several times. We were hoping to be able to approve a sign in that same spot at a future submission.
Would that be an electric one like they had previously?
That electronic one, I don't, that,
I mean, I would think for a shop of the size, that may be what they would want.
Yeah, we'd have to kind of revisit it, I think.
if we would come back
Yeah.
before.
Yeah, be at your discretion.
So if that'll be a separate thing then, Mark?
Hi, Steve, I mean, do you want to speak to this relative to the sign and addressing that at a later date? That,
If they propose an electronic message board that would have, it would require town board approval, so it could be addressed, if they don't have plans for it now, then there'd be no signage until that time. Placed on the.
Just the one that's on the building itself that they're proposing.
Yeah, that's the only one included in our package now, is the one on the building which we've submitted.
so at this time, I guess the board's approving of leaving it there and having it vacant, I guess, or left as is.
We, in our plans, we did say we would paint it so that at least it's not rusty and nasty looking.
They're gonna want to put up a sign.
Yeah,
We're gonna want to take it down if it's not part of this application.
Well,
We'll wait, we'll come back to it.
well, I
Is-
mean,
I'm gonna want to take it down if it's not part of this application. And just one vote, but
we're gonna say we're having a sign in there.
I guess so. I mean,
Okay, so we're gonna put a sign in there.
then we have to resubmit them.
Oh, we have
What
to
if we
redo
don't,
this?
what if we don't light it?
take it out.
I mean, can we have like 60 days or something to come back before whoever? So you're asking for another submission then if we want to put the sign in, not tonight, but to come back again for the submission with the sign?
Correct.
No, I'm not taking it down. I mean, we could even come back in 2 weeks to come before with the sign, with the proposal for the sign. Like your next meeting, if we can get on the agenda.
Can you talk into the mic, please? Because
Oh, I'm sorry.
people at home can't hear it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. No, I'm saying, we'd come back at whatever time period, even if we can get on the agenda like in 2 weeks to come back for the sign proposal.
We would get you on as soon as possible. Once we got the submittal, had a chance to review, we would get you on the next meeting. Yes.
Could we go through everything else to make sure there's
Absolutely.
no other issues?
Absolutely.
That's all I had at this moment.
Mr. Snyder?
I'm pretty good with it. As I try to, I've only been on the site, a half a dozen times, buying donuts or whatnot. But the patches that we show on the drawing for, pavement repair, I don't think it clicks with me, and what I would think has to be repaired. So I guess, I don't know, Mark, whether it's, whether you can take a look at that, but I think, I don't think the few patches that are on the drawing are sufficient for what we would normally expect a project to include.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm comfortable saying what needs to be done for pavement repair.
Can you put the image up that they provided?
Was there some,
There was something that showed the patching, right?
well, so these areas here, I guess the beige areas are,
Like 3 or 4 areas.
yeah, you've got an area here, here, here and here that are proposed for pavement repair.
Yeah.
The best we can do to see what's there, I guess, would be,
We did the same
You know,
thing
so,
for metabolic gym on 31. We just saw cut it out and put new pavement down and it's holding up well. They have like 150 cars go by it a day and it's holding up. It looks good. We resealed it. I think we can make it look good. Be,
You resealed the entire lot?
yeah, we resealed the whole lot.
Is that what you're proposing here?
Here we had shown crack filling and full depth replacement in the areas shown. A lot of the planes of the paving are intact. There are cracks.
Yeah, this parking lot's in better shape than Meadowball was, I think.
Surprisingly.
Then you want my input?
I mean, I just don't think that there's enough of the pavement that I would consider bad being replaced, but I've been known to be wrong.
Well, no, I mean, it's your prerogative, I guess, so if, what they're proposing, crack sealing that it's not a resurface, right? It's sealing. I guess if they do that, you're gonna have to restripe everything. It might look better, but you're still gonna have cracks and those types of things that'll come up through the ceiling.
So you're talking about resealing the whole parking lot?
We
We weren't
propose
showing that.
Yeah, we're just gonna seal where the cracks are. We're gonna
Yeah.
go around with like asphalt and pour it in where there's cracks, so it's
Yeah.
smooth.
It's a fine particle asphalt that you use to fill the cracks. It's
Yeah.
more like an asphalt epoxy, if you will.
Like a filler or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I share the same concerns as Mr. Snyder. I know cost is an issue. I get that, but we also have to be attentive to appearances in the town and making sure things are working properly and look decent. And so I think when you do your resubmittal, you're gonna want to take that into consideration. What's gonna happen with this paving? You've heard our comments, and so
Yeah, and I guess I guess I'd ask a question what the intent was. So you show, I guess you show an outline, something like this, right?
Yes.
And I don't know what the intent is by showing that, whether that's,
That's striping.
okay, so that's just striking. So there's no thought process to remove the pavement, to bring the pavement within those limits. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. And that's because if we eliminate pavement along Route 31 in Lake Shore, then we're back into having to get a resubmission to approve entrances, some of which are non-compliant and require variances.
I don't understand that, but
Also at the request of Jeff Deep at DOT Route 31's, his request was, Marla, what was his exact words? I don't want
He
What's
said, leave it exactly how it is for now, because he's anticipating that there's gonna be changes along.
Well, but meanwhile, somebody trips on a bad piece of pavement. There's a lawsuit coming from that. I mean, the area that is on the east entrance off of 31 that Mark just showed us, there was some bad pavement showed there, and you don't show, right. I mean, that's unacceptable, and you don't show that being patched. So I don't know whether it means, I hate to throw Steve in the pile, but does it mean, Steve, and you have to walk the doggone area and take a spray can and put the marks where that, I mean, because
Is that cracks or is that dried water? Yeah, it's dried pooled water.
right.
both.
Well,
it looks like stone rather
I'm
than.
seeing,
I
I'm
think you-
seeing a pot.
I think you could argue that it's not maintained. That's where water ponds and doesn't drain properly. Which is causing the cracking.
Right. So we want it to be maintained. We want to have someone in there who's gonna be maintaining everything and taking care of everything.
But it's got to be brought up to proper standards too.
So, want to add that area in?
I guess what I'm hearing is they'd like you to perhaps expand upon your
So.
repair areas beyond what's being shown on the set of plans. I mean, I guess maybe, I don't know if this is trying to relate to this area, I guess, maybe.
It relates
Maybe not, because,
It almost looks
And-
like it
and-
needs a whole new resurface.
and I guess indicate clearly that, well, I guess I hear, it sounds like the applicant's offering to, in addition to what's being said on the plan, to, seal the entire parking lot in addition to what's reflected on the plans.
At this point, I would just say like. That we would seal it. We just want to get the tenant in there. They're chomping. I don't want to lose the tenant. I want to put life into this corner. I'll reseal the whole lot. And I'll patch everywhere. I'm not gonna reseal. I'm not gonna go over stone with sealant. That would be wasteful.
Or low spots or,
Yeah, yeah. We'll
so
we'll make it look right,
with your resubmittal, I mean, if you came in here and said, we're gonna tear it all up and put all new pavement down, great, right? If you leave it like this, it's not gonna happen. So somewhere in between, you
Yeah.
have an idea what we're looking for. You're gonna want to include that in your submittal when you come back.
Okay.
Mr. Snyder, anything else?
No, good enough.
Mr. Bloss?
Looking at the prints up there, the first driveway entrance on the east end of that property, it seems like that's going to create more problems than it's going to solve. You have a right in and then you have either a left or a right out, which that's going to be tough enough to do a left out of that other driveway. Why not just do away with the first entrance on the east end of the property?
Well, for traffic circulation inside of there, the people are going to be going in there who are going to be going through the drive-through most likely. And then to get out, the traffic flow wise is going to be to go around to the front of the building and go out where we have the in and out sign. So traffic, the flow of it is going to be.
That's what I was looking at from the way I see it. If you didn't have that, they would make a right in on the westerly entrance. And now they got a little bit of space to get in line to go through the drive-through or go past the people in line and go right around the building. That's just my take on it.
Right, we're, for access wise, we're already closing up the access on.
Lake Shore. Yeah.
And Jeff did agree with us that for traffic flow, interior traffic flow in the project, that it would be better to keep it like that we'd have in and out. The people going in on the more westerly side would be people who would be parking, let's say, right down over there versus the people coming in on the east. side.
Yeah, because it's essentially two parking lots, if you want to think of it that way, and that's why you need that entrance.
So for those who are just pulling in to park and go in the store, they would be more inclined to use the one entrance, and those
Right.
doing the drive-through would turn in the
Correct.
other.
Correct.
No further questions.
Can you review with the board what you're gonna do with elevation?
Yeah, Ryan, do you want to talk about that? The elevation? Yeah, I'll let Ryan.
Yeah, so
discuss that.
I mean, that's where it's yellow, we're gonna make it blue. We're gonna fix the siding. There's some, damaged siding up top. And what's that?
Some materials.
Oh.
You're gonna want to know materials.
Oh. I don't know. I mean, we're painting, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Your what?
We're painting. So everywhere where it's yellow, we're gonna make it blue. And you see up top there, the vinyl, we're gonna repair, there's some vinyl siding that's torn off. We're gonna fix that. Replace the vinyl that's torn off.
Extra sign piece.
And that's coming down.
Yes, that's coming down right there.
See, there's a piece of vinyl off there. Put that back on. Up at the
Yeah,
top
so-
left.
So when you're submitted, we're gonna want to see all that in detail. And then lastly, I want to have a discussion about the drive-through. Nobody mentioned that. Are you guys all comfortable with the drive-through? Because I'm still not, but
I just think the drive-through will police itself. You know, if I go in there and it works great, I'll use it. If I go in there and it's a pain in the ass, I'll never use it again. So, I just say let the public try. I mean, they showed Wawa as an example. This is not a Wawa.
no.
Wawa is a super place. When I worked in Delaware, I loved them. But you know, since I left Delaware, they have in fact incorporated their drive-throughs. So, and that's a big corporation. So if they're willing to do that, I guess I don't have any problem with this Joe doing it.
My only big issue is people coming out of your business cannot go east. There's no way during, busy times, which is almost always busy. You can't cut across that traffic to go east.
There's the turn lane.
Or they'll have to go around the spur.
Yeah, you just use the
Yeah.
spur.
You have to go back around.
Well, they can't get there.
It's
Like,
more
right,
at DOT.
You can go west and back up to Lake Shore.
Yeah.
Not our job to.
You know, like you said, Chuck, it's a difficult spot and
Very
we're
difficult.
getting some improvement. Everybody else is good with the drive-through? All right, so that's it for me. Steve?
Nothing more. Thank you.
Yeah. Mark?
Yeah, I think you've hit on all the issues we recommended be reviewed with them.
All right, so if you can get that resubmittal in as soon as possible, we'll get you on the agenda just as quickly as we can. Right,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we can go to CVE North America for the three-tier proposed solar property. 9155 Brewerton Road. This is a sketch plan and a subdivision.
Thank you.
Thank you.
New information? Okay.
Looks like Kansas. Yeah. But we're not in Kansas anymore.
It does look nice.
Right now, yeah, I wouldn't be able to get it there.
No
now.
problem. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Jared Lusk with the law firm Nixon Peabody, representing CVE North America. Again, I provided you a paper copy of the PowerPoint to give you just a little background information on CVE. Carson Winan from CVE is the project manager. He has another meeting tonight, couldn't be in both places, so I'm covering this evening. I did hear the public input comments as well. As you know, we submitted a preliminary application on December 16th, 2022, provided information to you as we acknowledged in the application. We don't have the landscaping and the visuals yet, and we recognize that that information is forthcoming. We don't expect that the application's ready for full consideration until you get that information, and we understand that. So we acknowledge that in the application. We wanted to get the preliminary plan in, have the discussion with the town on many of the issues that were discussed at the podium previously. As you know, from the application, CVE is proposing to construct a 5 megawatt AC ground mounted solar, tier 3 solar project at 9155 Brewerton Road. I know I haven't, you must know from the other projects that are here that the locations of the solar projects are primarily driven by available interconnection utilities in the area. And that is what's driving the location of these facilities. The development of solar facilities is also driven by state policy. As you know, Cuomo and previously indicated that they wanted, as I said, in Exhibit B in the application, 70% of New York statewide electricity needs are supposed to be from renewable energy by 2030. It's a state priority. It's what they want. And I appreciate that this has an impact on communities that have available land near interconnection facilities. We're trying to balance the need or the development of solar facilities in the area with the available interconnection space. As someone who obviously assists CVE in projects throughout upstate, solar is obviously growing rapidly, and it's growing rapidly because the state has indicated that utilities are required to get source renewable energy. Percentage of renewable energy as outlined in Exhibit B by 2023 was the first goal, and again 70% by the year 2030. With that said, obviously the town of Cicero has a solar facility law. These projects are permitted subject to regulation by the town board, et cetera, as the permitting and your review and recommendation. From a siting, technical setback, et cetera, project, I believe the project does fully comply with the project. The site is like many sites in the town of Cicero, is challenging from a developability perspective based on the wetlands on the site. But we have been very careful to cite, at least in these preliminary plans, to cite the project to minimize its visibility, the setbacks, et cetera, from adjacent properties. We will demonstrate to you through our visual analysis that will be provided that this project will not be visible from adjacent properties, at least in a meaningful way. Again, it's a surrounding area, again, substantially set back from the road, et cetera. And again, driven, the location of it driven by the interconnection on that highway. So again, the project has been placed in front of you. It's 5 megawatts. If we can just go through the PowerPoint with you a little bit, so you learn a little bit about CVE. CVE is not like a traditional, so I'm sure every solar developer comes in and tells you that they're different. CVE is different. Sorry, it's late. Say that 10 times fast. CVE is not developing it and selling it to whoever wants to buy it. They're not run and gun. These CVE develops the property and holds the property. This will be their property. They will be managing their property. They will be owning and operating the facility. It's headquartered in CVE North America is headquartered in New York City. But the CVE group is headquartered in France with over 300 employees. It's got 500 plus megawatt in operation and construction throughout the world, 38 megawatts in Massachusetts and 72 megawatts in New York. They own and operate their facilities. Again, it's long-term ownership. It's never sold an operating asset. And again, and it's received financial backing. With this site, I'm on page 3 of the PowerPoint. Again, the solar size is 6.5 megawatt DC, or as I said, 5 megawatts AC. The parcel itself is 98.28 acres. The solar acreage on a 98 acre parcel is 23.6 acres. So approximately 25% of the site will be developed with the facility, 11,100 panels, and annual estimated production of 9,165,000 kilowatt hours. Again, the current site is vacant, and we have, as indicated in the application, secured site control for the property. As you look at this project, there's a large, again, the project will include subdivision. That portion of the property to the east along Brewerton Road, again, is proposed to be subdivided and left undeveloped by the solar facility, left for future
development of along Brewerton Road. Again, trying to minimize the overall impact to your community by keeping it back in an area and off the highway. There is, the project location is favorable for solar development from a technical perspective. There's a feasible interconnection with National Grid on Mud Mill Road. Again, that's probably consistent with the other solar projects in the area. There's a reason why people can connect here, and that's because of the available surrounding infrastructure that drives the location of these facilities. It's zone general commercial, again, allowable by way of special use permit. From our design analysis perspective, the town has only two good areas for solar. Along Brewerton Road from Route 31 to Mud Mill Road, and along Route 31 from Northern Pines Golf Club to Bridgeport, the Menor Road. That's why they're here. It's because these are the locations in the town that are feasible from a development perspective. Limited, almost no visibility of the project there will be limited, if any, visibility from nearby roads and abutters. To the north, there's Plank Road Park and the Calvary Baptist Church. Project will be set back 100 feet from Mud Mill Road. To the west, the town of Clay and dense existing vegetation. To the south, the greens at Beaumont Golf Course, same property owner is the current property owner for our site. And to the east, Brewerton Road and the general commercial businesses. Projects set back almost 700 feet, as I said, from Brewerton Road. There's limited tree removal. Mostly previously cleared property is the land. It's not located in a FEMA hazard area and not located in an ag district. The northern portion of this image that's on the screen will outline the interconnection point and the facilities that are required for the point of interconnection. We'll interconnect at three-phase power lines on Mud Mill Road. Again, that's driving most of the development in this area is based on the existing infrastructure. It will feed into the Bartell substation 1 mile to the northeast of the project site. Again, there is capacity in that substation to take the power. That is a requirement to develop solar, is that there's available capacity. We are driven in large part, again, by available transportation capacity. In other words, the three-phase power out along Mud Mill Road with the substation that's in close proximity with the capacity to accept the power. The National Grid will have to install 6 above ground poles on the project site as indicated to the north to accommodate the interconnection. Should not be lost aside from understanding neighbors' concerns that the overall clean benefit of solar energy. I know you've been told this, you're aware of the benefit of clean energy. We've provided some statistics here to help you understand what this facility will provide with the 9,165,000 kilowatt hours, what that's equivalent to. It's equivalent to 1,399 gasoline powered passenger cars driven for 1 year, 107,397 tree seedlings grown for over 10 years, 43.8 acres of US forest preserved from conversion to cropland in 1 year, 16,122,111 miles driven by the average gasoline powered passenger vehicle, and 7,687 acres of US forests preserved in 1 year. That's the value of the energy lost in the carbon reduction of the carbon footprint. In addition, as I'm sure you've heard from other community solar facilities, approximately 700 National Grid customers will be able to subscribe to this project, which will receive about a 10% discount to the credit to their utility bills that they receive. And they'll be able to receive those credits for 25 years or so. Again, based on our knowledge, our math, subscribers will be able to save approximately $2,750,000 in energy costs over 25 years. Again, I think you're familiar with how community solar work based on the other projects. And again, we've talked about the tax benefits, et cetera. We expect to pay a pilot as well as underlying total assessed projects. So there will be financial benefit for the community in terms of support for the tax base. What's unique to CVE, I think is important, is that $1 of every panel is donated to a local charity concerned with environmental causes. That involves tree planting, land and water conservation, protection, and local wildlife and biodiversity, and or education and sustainability and clean energy. So again, with this project over 11,000 panels, $11,000 will, over $11,000 will be donated to a local charity in furtherance of environmental causes. And also, they take great pride in the vegetation that's planted in and around the panels. It's a pollinator friendly vegetation. They are very specific. This is very particular. This is their trademark. And again, the different areas and the percentage of the seedlings are provided for you. It will be a pollinator friendly flowering vegetation surrounding the panels. Again, I know that you're concerned with landscaping. Again, CVE is ready and willing to work with the board. They haven't developed their landscaping plan. They want you to understand the site and understand where it would be required. And again, they'll work hard with the planning board and the town board regarding appropriate placement of landscaping based on the actual site and the needs of the site. So I expect the site visit will be required, some additional analysis with town staff and engineering about where we think appropriate landscaping, et cetera, will be required. And again, the decommissioning bond, et cetera, that's required. But again, we are at the very preliminary stage. We understand there's a lot of discussion and back and forth with the planning board, but from a planning perspective, it's a pretty straightforward terms of a solar project. However controversial solar projects may be, but again, the location of this is driven primarily by the surrounding infrastructure. If you're going to have solar in the town, if we're going to have solar in the state, we've got to place these in locations where there's the available infrastructure to service them. And this part of the town of Cicero has that. With that, I'll defer back to the board.
Thank you. We'll open up to questions. Mr. Duval.
Yes. I thought I read somewhere about using berms for this to help shield it or, you know, from view.
We will, again, we will develop a landscaping, CVE will develop a formal landscaping plan with input from the town for whatever you all think is best, given the circumstances of it. We understand what the landscaping requirements are. Before we spend a lot of money designing it, we want to get input from the town. Where should it be? What type of stuff do you want? And then we'll design the landscaping surrounding berms, et cetera, that are most appropriate for the town.
But most likely there'll be something like that, or, you know, you use trees or landscaping or what have you to.
I've represented CVE in various towns through upstate New York. I can tell you that each situation is different. We've used berms, we've used trees, we've used fences. Some towns prefer fencing with plastic shielding through it rather than landscape. Sometimes there's fencing with landscaping. Again, each circumstance is different, and each planning board or town board, each government that's permitting will set different standards. CVE will be at the ready to hear what you want, where you want it, the type that you want, and they'll design it do their best to design that accordingly.
Okay, I'm good for now.
Mr. Abbott.
And yes, in addition to the, what Jim was just talking about on shielding, it's basically, it looks like from the north side and the east side visibilities. It sits back quite a ways off Brewerton Road, yes, but you still need quite a bit of border there. And up on Mud Mill, you're not too far off Mud Mill, of course. So that would take additional shielding, obviously.
Again, I'm hearing you, obviously, the full development of a screening and or landscaping plan is in the making. We don't have it there. We haven't attempted to put something in that isn't acceptable. And we want to work with you, but I'm taking the notes for Carson indicating that you're, again, concerned about screening.
Sure.
As you mentioned, along Mud Mill and Brewerton.
This packet you left here, I gotta admit, is 3 days of reading anyway.
We try.
I never knew there were so many different types of loam soils.
Again, we're trying to give you the data that we've done the work where CVE is fully invested and they put the time and money into it, and they will with regard to the screening as well.
Sure. Okay, I'm all set for now. Thank you.
Mr. Snyder.
I guess I have nothing at this point.
Mr. Bloss.
I can't help but notice here, like you said, the subscribers will receive a 10% discount to the bill credits they receive. Is that the biggest thing? Being a citizen of the town of Cicero and also live on Mud Mill Road. What's the biggest thing you would say, biggest reason why we should have that solar farm there?
Again, I understand with any utility, with any public utility, somewhere along the line, somebody had to live near, when they first developed telephone poles or telephone lines and utility poles, somebody needed to live near the substation. Somebody needed to live near the telephone poles. Somebody needed to live near the water tank, right? When they needed to put a water pipe, and maybe it was unfortunate that that your property was next to the water tank. But in the end, from a community benefit perspective, your whole entire town of Cicero, the upstate New York, the state of New York, again, without being too dramatic, the world can benefit from renewable energy as opposed to the carbon-based energy that we have. And again, this is not driven by a particular that we've decided that Mud Mill Road is the best place to put a solar facility. It's driven again by the available surrounding infrastructure. The choice that was made to put a substation in this close to this location. Again, Grid's decision to put a three-phase line along Mud Mill Road. That's what's driving the location, not because we just decided that it should be here. And we're trying to provide this renewable energy that's required using the infrastructure that others chose to place in locations. And again, this is all it's all feeding from that, not because there's a particular desire to put it in Cicero, but collaborative and collectively, the investment in this renewable energy where it's feasible is what will benefit the community, upstate New York, et cetera, all of us in future years.
What do you consider the lifespan on these solar panels?
Again, we can provide more detail on that. That's changing with the market, and I don't have the latest detail on that, but I believe I don't even want to speak to it because I believe it's 15 or 20 years. But again, Carson can provide you that detail. It all depends on which panel they're choosing, and I don't have that memorized, but we can provide that detail for you.
I'm sure that we'll have some more questions as we have a chance to read through this. No further questions.
How many households would this provide energy for?
Again, overall, I think we provided the numbers from a community solar perspective, the benefits of that. Give me a second.
700.
700, a lot of numbers there for me to memorize. I didn't memorize that number, but 700 will get the community. It will have have the access to ability or the ability to subscribe to that community
thanks.
solar.
So the first paragraph of 208-8 permitting requirements. In fact, you heard a couple of residents talk about this, and this was a concern of mine. I'm not sure that in my mind, you get beyond this, is that the town board will strive to permit the location of tier 3 solar energy systems in such a manner so that no one area or neighborhood in the town would be overburdened by the placement of a tier 3 solar energy system. Mark, can you pull that map up?
We have one off McKinley here. The recent Mud Mill is here, and this is this location.
So in my mind, I don't think you get past that. And I think it's important that I let you know that now early. I don't know what could happen to make me change my mind on that concern.
I think it's important to understand what impacts the board is referencing. If, for example, and I can't speak to the specifics of those other two sites and how impactful they are to neighbors. Here being so, we've designed the facility to be far off the road and not visible and less impact. If just because it's located here doesn't mean it adversely impacts the neighborhood. And I think it's important that we withhold judgment on just because it's in the area. If it is the saying, if the tree falls in the forest and no one hears it, did it make noise? Right? I'm not saying that this won't have an impact, but I ask the board to keep an open mind on what impacts there actually are and consider what impacts could be, what other impacts could be could be had in this area if it was developed for something else. And again, they're designing this, they're serious about designing it to minimize the impacts. I think we have to compare those issues. Again, this is a determination the town board will have to make, and I share the concern, and I understand that's not an uncommon paragraph that you see in community solar or solar laws. Again, that's sort of inconsistent with the state policy of pursuing renewable energy and solar facilities, again, that are driven in large part by the location of available infrastructure. You have to put it where the infrastructure is. And so if you're going to be serious about this as a community, as a state, as a country, then we have to understand that there are some areas where this is going to be. And our goal here is to minimize the impact. So just because it's in this area, hopefully it will be, the impacts will be minimal to the extent that when you compare it to what else could be here, or the fact that it's an open field now, and maybe you won't be impacted by it. Hopefully that will help resolve that issue. If it's just about location and not impact, then I think I share your concern about the overall decision.
Yeah, the language is overburdened, right? And overburdened could mean, well, geez, that's a pretty prime piece of property that maybe other things could happen with. Overburdened could be the visual impact, although you're saying we're not going to see it. I'll be curious to see that on One Mill Road. And so I just want you to know, I'm going to keep an open mind, absolutely, but that I think is a tough hurdle.
Right. And again, this is a state policy and understanding with, local concerns, and I get that issue.
Mark, can we go to the elevation that shows the panels on Mud Mill? The solar project. Yeah. But the 100-foot setbacks right about here, right?
Yes. I haven't got that.
Why does this run parallel inside of the 100-foot setback? And why does it run parallel with the road? Why does it run?
Well, again, the interconnection, the interconnection is going to drive that. The utility needs to get to those interconnection points, those poles where that's happening.
Understood.
So that's, I think why it's understanding typically why it's that way, but I can always ask. But again, the interconnection has to be at that three-phase power. So it's got to be up by Mud Mill Road.
So these can't run perpendicular to the road?
I'm sorry, which the poles?
Oh, yeah. Seems like we've done that on Northern Boulevard.
I think every other project we have, they are perpendicular.
I could certainly ask that. I'm sure the engineering design, they can work through that. I don't know the answer to that question. So you're wondering why you should look at them straight perpendicular to the road as opposed to along.
Yeah, it's probably the most unattractive part of it.
Okay.
And they're within that 100-foot buffer. And they run parallel with the road. They have to, maybe you have to go 200-foot back.
I'll ask that.
Grab this language. And then there's some language under CI, I think it is. All utility services and electrical wiring lines shall be placed underground and otherwise be placed within the walls or unobstructed conduits or feeds which are laid on the roof shall be camouflaged to blend in with the roof and reduce static. That's not the one I want.
I think that's the residential.
That's not the one I want.
If you want me to check whether this infrastructure can be placed underground, I will tell you that I will ask that question again. But grid and others, there are design requirements for that type of infrastructure connection, but we'll look through that.
Yeah, so I want to know what your definition of feasible is relative to underground.
Overtime.
He's a judge. He can do whatever he wants.
Oh, as long as he's not.
So you talk about putting everything underground that's feasible.
Correct.
I want to know what that means.
That we can, again, we're driven by the utilities design standards of the National Electrical Code requirements for stuff that's like above ground and below ground, but again, it's a reasonable.
So it's not a
question.
cost thing. It's
It's,
just-
when you consider the total cost here, if, that's not, in my experience, it's always been driven by grid has the design requirements their engineers provide to you, and you have to comply with them. It has nothing to do with cost. In the big picture, putting the underground conduit here, if it worked, would not be an issue.
And then just some comments on landscaping. I think we would definitely want to see some berming, evergreens, some deciduous native trees, as Ashley would point out. And a variety of seasonal interest, shrubbery.
If you have a particular design standard that somebody wants to give in terms of, does the town have a landscape architect that they use? I think we're happy to hear it and do whatever you want. If there's some way somebody can provide us what exactly, is there a particular species? Is there, again, from our landscaping perspective, I think they'll be happy to listen to what you want. They'd probably like to design it. Not once, but certainly get something to started with that you prefer. And we'll be happy to do that as a draft and refine it rather than sort of guessing.
I was looking at DeWitt stuff. That's pretty detailed.
It is. I guess the best thing to do might be to start off with the goal of the landscaping. So, and I believe they've kind of asked for that guidance. So, is it, we don't want to see any of the solar panels from anywhere along Mud Mill or Route 11 as you drive through there, then that's going to push them towards a particular plan of attack.
That's
as
probably
to
a good
how
goal.
to do that. Okay.
Not visible from Mud Mill or Brewerton Road.
Yeah. And that's going to play in with the topography, elevations and everything, whether or not you need a berm, whether you can do it with landscaping. Yeah, I don't know, again, I think if we're going to talk about the types of vegetation, again, native species, a mixture of, deciduous and, evergreen type trees, as opposed to a mono type landscaping plan that we've seen on a couple of other projects that I don't think have worked as well as I think the board would have liked them to.
Agreed. Maybe in 20 years.
Yeah, so I guess if you're looking for guidance, that might be where we start. Certainly those two, the two corridors where most people are going to see this project are those traveling along Mud Mill Road and along, Route 11. So I think those are the critical view sheds, that need to be looked at. Those really would take in to my, looking at this here, you've got Plank Road Park, so what's the potential view from there? You have some residential areas down here to the west. Again, we talked about the view shed from Brewerton Road. You got the golf course to the south. It was brought up that, if something potentially develops there in the future, is that a concern? So that's so the board's got to convey that.
That would be a concern.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would want landscape only.
Yeah.
Is this being submitted to Clay?
It will,
It will be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
they've got sent a
So-
coordinated review letter. Yep.
Yeah, so I guess that's the best I can offer up for suggestions on guidance at this point. Without specifically picking tree paths.
The town board has to issue a special use permit to have this go forward.
we're gonna make a recommendation.
Yeah, let's say we do, but what if the town board right now interprets the code maybe as strongly as you do right now with the cluster effect being something that they don't want to see? I'm almost wondering if we should or could we get a feeling from the town board? Because I don't want to put any vendor through 2 or 3 months of engineering design if the interpretation of the code based on our town board or the people that get voted in office to make these decisions, our lawyer shaking his head.
The town board really wouldn't be in a position to give you a full evaluation of that and give the applicant a yay or nay on it until the process plays out. And part of the applicant's, risk reward here is to know that they're gonna make an application, they're gonna spend a lot of money or do whatever they're gonna do. They're gonna get through the recommendation process here, and then the town board's gonna evaluate.
I'm hearing the concern about the concentration. You've made it fully clear. The client is going to be fully aware of that concern. I will, obviously whether, and obviously the landscaping plan, I took the notes on what they have. I can't speak for them, whether they're going to go full bore now and doing landscaping plans, understanding the concerns that are raised. But I will defer to them to make that decision. But either way, we'll proceed with the information that we have in terms of where and the types of generally species or whatever, and we'll come back. Maybe there'll be some preliminary landscaping designs with the understanding. I've seen them develop landscaping plans. I can tell you some of the towns that we've been in doing landscaping plans got burned with the first solar facilities that went in there with maybe landscaping that they thought was going to be there that isn't. They've developed landscaping plans that are significantly different than what was developed on prior solar facilities at great expense. I understand what you're asking for. I've seen it. I understand it, and they will get that message. I will find out whether maybe they'll tell you to hold or they'll decide to hold based on what Mr. Germain is saying. I'll leave it to them. I can't make that statement.
There was a good question. That's why I brought it up initially.
I hear
The applicant's
you
gonna go
loud.
through a lot of money.
Yep. You're
going through
giving
this
us that
process.
choice to make that decision, whether we want to proceed, understanding that issue.
I'm afraid that because the question, if we asked each board member now on the QT, what do you think? There would be yes, no, and hell no. And I'm not sure what the answer would be, but if it is, no or hell no, then to me, there's a lot of wasted effort going on here.
Talking about the town board.
Yep. I appreciate the dilemma, and obviously CBE and the landowner have certain property rights, and they have to deal with that. A decision by the town board either way.
And as far as the landscaping, I might add to whatever their suggestions or plans are, something that would do the work in a few years as opposed to waiting 10 or 15 for it to do that.
Certainly, that's the size and is key to the design of the landscaping. Obviously, some people, there's a difference in planting something like that or 6 foot.
Exactly.
Right.
Correct. Thank you.
So what is the plan with the Route 11, the lot number 2?
The landowner is keeping that property.
Landowner's keeping it.
That's the plan.
So there's nothing planned for that right now.
He's keeping that. I'm unaware of anything that he would be doing. He wanted to keep it for future development.
That's all I have at this point, Steve.
Can you tell us if there's any consideration ongoing for future solar on the golf course?
I don't have any answer on that. So I'm here. I don't have any answer on that.
What's that?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
All set.
Mark,
Nothing else.
anything else from you at this point?
No, sir. So I've heard the note about the screening, a couple of times landscaping screening. You were asked a question about the specific lifespan of the panels. Again, the concern about the over concentration in 208-8 of the zoning code. There was a question about the perpendicular, can the interconnection poles be perpendicular instead of parallel to Mud Mill Road? And again, there are various trees, native species, deciduous, evergreen, et cetera, seasonal variety and seasonal blooming, et cetera. And you've made it clear you don't want it visible from Mud Mill and Brewerton Road. And we need to assess the visibility from the Plank Road Park and the residential areas to the west in particular. That's what I'm taking from comments.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is, we're gonna submit this to the town of Clay. And any input that they may have, we would want to address.
All right, thank you. It's great to meet you.
Thank you.
guys.
Thanks.
That concludes the agenda items. Is there any discussion from the board? The team, any comments, questions?
It's obviously part of the project as a subdivision, but if we can't get the project approved, we're not gonna pursue the.
And I think you asked the pertinent questions, what are you gonna do with that lot? I mean, it's pretty simple part of the process, everything else.
Just, you have to be determined at what point to
Related
set a
to
public
everything
hearing.
else, so,
You have to determine at what point you want to set a public hearing for it, that's all.
yeah, but that,
We can wait.
Yeah, I think there's some work to be done. We can answer the questions and make a decision.
and there hasn't been a formal subdivision plan submitted as far as I can see.
Right. Right, other than what's in the package.
Yeah.
From a process perspective, is it going to stay here for a little while before it goes to the town board? I know you talked about which decision comes first, the town board or here.
It'll stay here for a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
We're gonna go through the review process.
right, and so.
And then we're gonna make they call it a recommendation, see, or something else?
Yes, it says recommendation.
Recommendation is it a recommendation that we give?
It's a
that?
report.
A report.
Procedurally, what happens? Do we stay on the agenda pending submission of information? All right, so when would the next meeting be? So I could just make sure I let,
First and third Wednesdays.
all right, so I can assure you, we won't have answered those questions by 2 weeks, so.
Yeah, once you submit additional information, we'll need a chance to review it, a few days to review, like by the Wednesday, the week
Okay.
before.
You get it in a week prior to the meetings, right? You typically.
The latest, yeah.
Okay, so that's fine. So you won't expect to see us until you submit. That was my question. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Have a great night.
You do the same.
It's Jared, like the jeweler, Jared. Last name Lusk, Lusk. Thank you very much. I used to say Jared like the subway guy, but that's frowned upon.
Anything from our team? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second? Meeting adjourned. Good night.
Now we're going to
have our informal
teaching and training from Amy.